Onome went home that day in tears, her heart shattered into pieces. She felt lost and completely alone. For days, she cried bitterly. How could Aena betray her like that? She had trusted him with her heart, with everything, and now it was all gone. Dima was furious when she found out that Onome had gone back to Madame Margaret. "I'm ashamed of you," she scolded. "After everything that woman said to us, after how she treated us like dirt, why would you go back to her, Onome? Why?" Onome could only cry harder. "What do I do, Mama? My life is over. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't be in this situation. But I swear it was a mistake. And I only went there so she could believe me. How will we survive now? How will I raise this child?" She cried so much, her body shaking with every sob. Dima's anger slowly melted into pity. She moved closer to her daughter and pulled her into her arms. "It's okay, my child," she whispered. "The deed has been done and I forgive you. I want you to know that we will survive this together. God, who always made a way for us, will help us again. I will do everything I can to make sure you and this baby are well taken care of. But as for that money that woman threw at you, you will return it." Onome looked up, shocked. "But Mama, we need that money." Dima nodded. "Yes, we do, but we don't need her money. We will let her know we are not beggars. She thinks we are nothing but flies looking for scraps. Let her keep her money. I have some savings. It's not much, but it will cover what you need for now. And I, Dima, will work harder than ever to see that we survive until this child is born." Onome felt a little bit of peace in her mother's words. Her pain was still there, but her mother's strength gave her hope. Right there, she made a silent promise. Never again would she trust any man with her heart. The next day, Onome returned the money just as her mother said, but Madame Margaret wasn't home. And so she sealed the money in an envelope and gave it to the security man. He looked at her with pity, but said nothing. Meanwhile, far away, Aena had settled into his new school abroad, but he was not happy. His heart felt empty. He missed Onome more than he could say. He had never imagined she would move on so quickly. The pain in his chest grew heavier with each passing day. He kept thinking, was all of it a lie? But my mother would never lie to me, he thought to himself. I was shocked when I heard it, Madame Margaret had said over the phone, pretending to sound hurt. I did not believe it at first until I saw her myself, walking around with different boys. I warned you about that girl, Aena. She was only trying to use you to escape her poor life. Aena did not want to believe it. His heart refused to accept the image of Onome being that kind of girl. He thought about calling her, but he had lost the piece of paper that had her mother's phone number, and so he begged his mother to pass his own number to Onome instead. But a few days later, she gave him another report. She said she doesn't want anything to do with you, Mother Margaret said coldly. She insulted me. Can you imagine? She even has a new rich boyfriend. She didn't even wait for you to leave. And now I heard she's pregnant. Aena, I was so angry. I was so angry that I fired her mother. People like them don't deserve good things. That was the last straw for Aena. He sat in silence for a long time that day. If his mother, who once disliked Onome, but later seemed to accept her, could say all this, then maybe it was true. He felt betrayed, hurt, lost. His sadness turned into anger, and instead of letting it break him, he poured all that energy into his books. He studied harder than he had ever before, determined to succeed. But no matter how far he went or how much time passed, Onome was still a part of him, a wound that refused to heal. He tried to forget her, but he just couldn't. Life had become very hard for Onome and her mother. Dimma had spent almost everything she had on baby items before the birth, and now that Onome was heavily pregnant, she could no longer do much to help. Still, Dimma was determined not to let them go hungry. She started doing any small job she could find, washing clothes, selling vegetables, cleaning gutters, anything that could bring little money. No work was too dirty or too small. She just wanted to feed her daughter and prepare for the baby's arrival. They went through a lot. They suffered days of hunger, nights without food. But still, they were surviving. A few months later, Onome gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. He had bright eyes and a head full of soft black hair. Dimma looked at him with tears in her eyes and named him Ifunanya, which means love. It was a name filled with hope, even in their suffering. But after Ifunanya's birth, things became even more difficult. Caring for a baby was no joke. Every day came with new challenges: diapers, sleepless nights, baby food, hospital visits. There was no help from anywhere. Whatever they needed, they had to work twice as hard to get it. 6 months passed. Then, one morning, Dimma called Onome into her room. "Adanaya," she said softly. "Come and sit down. I want to talk to you." Onome sat down quietly, and her mother reached for her hands. "My child, these past few months have not been easy for either of us, but especially for you. You've been through so much in life. Everyone makes mistakes, but not everyone gets the chance to rise from those mistakes. You're still young, and I know you had big dreams before all of this happened. I want you to know that those dreams are still possible. This situation does not define you. I still see that girl with fire in her eyes, and I want her to rise again." Onome's eyes filled with tears. "But how, Mama? I already have a baby. How can I go after my dreams now? Maybe I should just forget about school and just find a job. I need to support you and take care of Ifunanya." Dimma sighed deeply. "You are a wise girl, but I know you've learned a lesson from everything that has happened. That's why I've decided that you will go back to school." Onome blinked back in surprise. "Yes," Dimma continued. "Things are hard, but we must try. You get a small job like you suggested, and I will double my efforts too. We will save money, no matter how small, until it's enough for you to return to school. And don't worry about Ifunanya, I will take care of him while I work." "But Mama," Onome cried, "how will you manage that? You already work so hard, taking care of him too. It will be too much for you." Dimma let out a deep laugh. "What do you think a woman's back is for? This back is my personal boot. I carried you on it while I worked, and I will carry him too. This is not the end for us, Onome. It cannot be the end. We must make it because nobody is coming to rescue us. Onome burst into tears again and hugged her mother tightly. I'm so sorry for everything I've put you through, Mama. I swear on my father's grave, I will never disappoint you again. I will make you proud and I will give you the life that you deserve. Dimma nodded through her own tears. She did not know how it would happen, but she had faith. A strong, quiet faith that kept her going. From that day, Onome's spirit was renewed. Her heart was set on rising above everything she had gone through. She made a promise to herself to succeed, not just for her, but for her mother and her son. She would prove everyone wrong, everyone who thought her life was over. Over the next few weeks, she weaned Ifunanya of breast milk. It was time for her to start getting ready for her journey. She had always been a brilliant girl and her secondary school results proved it. She had passed all her subjects with distinctions. Now, she was ready to fight for her future again. It was as if the universe had finally smiled at Onome, because the very first place she went to submit her job application gave her a job on the spot, just like that. She was employed at a large frozen foods factory, not just your regular corner store, a full-blown business with over 70 workers, a company. They produced and sold all kinds of frozen items: chicken, beef, goat meat, prawns, croaker, Titus, any kind of fish you can imagine, name it. The pay was not much, especially for someone with her qualifications, but Onome did not mind. She took the job with gratitude and a heart ready to work. She had a simple plan: do her best, save up and return to school. From her very first day, Onome poured her heart into the job. She was focused, respectful, kind, and quick to learn. She treated everyone, from the cleaners to the top supervisors, with equal respect. Before long, she became everyone's favorite. People called her that new girl we know the rest. She was always moving, always doing something, always helping someone. Her attitude did not just win her the hearts of her colleagues. It caught the attention of the factory manager too. He couldn't stop praising her. If there was any work that needed care and precision, Onome was his go-to person, and each time she delivered perfectly. Onome enjoyed working at the factory. It gave her a sense of purpose, and it was encouraging that she worked with people who loved her. But then, as easy as it was for a person to be loved, it was twice as easy to be hated. Onome unknowingly made an enemy: Chinelo. Chinelo worked in the same factory and had worked there for a year before Onome came. She was always tired, lazy, complained about everything, and would never take correction. If she did something wrongly and got corrected, instead of seeing her mistakes, Chinelo would take offense and sometimes pick a fight. She never believed that she was wrong or even capable of doing anything wrongly. When Onome came along, at first she was happy that attention would be taken away from her, and there was finally someone she could push all her work to. But her plans backfired. Everyone started singing Onome's praises. This angered her. But the one that pained her the most was that the factory manager started to scold her more often and compared her with Onome at any slightest chance. Chinelo became very bitter. She hated Onome so much that the thought and sight of her alone was enough to ruin her day. At a point, she started thinking of ways to put Onome into trouble, or better still, eliminate her for good. One day, Chinelo and Onome were paired by the manager to work alongside each other. The idea was for Chinelo to learn a few things from Onome, especially how to take an inventory. That day, they received an unexpected yet important visitor. The owner of the factory, the famous Big Oga, as all called him, came visiting. This was a big deal. He was always abroad and no one had seen him in years. He looked very rich, well-dressed, and in his early 50s. As soon as Onome saw him, something clicked in her mind. I've seen this man before, she thought. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't remember where. So she pushed the thought aside and focused on her work. The factory was surprised. No one had seen Big Oga in almost 3 years. But thank God, everything was in perfect order thanks to Mr. Obi, the manager. Big Oga was impressed. In fact, he was so pleased that he declared lunch was on him that day. People jumped, clapped, and danced. Even Chinelo, the unhappy Chinelo, was happy that day, at least for the moment. Then the manager did something that changed the mood for her. He took Onome by the hand and walked over to Big Oga. Chief, he said proudly, this is the new girl I told you about, the one we hired 2 months ago. Big Oga looked at Onome with interest. Ah, she's so young. I hope she's catching up well. Yes, sir, Mr. Obi replied quickly. She's doing well. Very hard-working girl. Chief nodded. That's good. That's very good. He looked directly at Onome. What's your name? She bowed slightly. My name is Onome, sir. Chief smiled. Well done, Onome. Mr. Obi tells me good things about you. Keep up the good work. Who knows, maybe one day you'll become a supervisor here or even take over from Mr. Obi himself. They all laughed. But from where Chinelo stood, she wasn't laughing. In fact, she boiled with rage. She had never even been noticed by Chief. She had worked there for a whole year and Chief did not even know her name. And that did not sit well with her at all. She clenched her jaw, swallowed the bitterness rising in her throat, and told herself silently, don't worry, your time will come. You will deal with her very soon. Well, very soon came very soon. Because that same day after the close of work, most of the workers had already started going home. Mr. Obi had left earlier with Chief, so the factory was quieter than usual. But Onome and Chinelo stayed behind. They had one last task: to take inventory in the cold room where all the frozen meat and fish were kept. The cold room was icy as always. The walls and the floor were freezing. No one liked to stay in there longer than necessary, so they moved quickly, trying to finish and leave. Then something caught Onome's eyes. She bent down and picked it up. Her mouth opened in shock. It was a bundle of $100 notes. She gasped and called out, Chinelo, come and see this. Chinelo rushed forward, wondering what had happened. When she saw the money, her eyes widened in disbelief. Jesus, she shouted. Onome, this is money. Real pure dollars. Where did you find it? It was just lying here on the ground, Onome replied. It must have fallen from Chief's pockets when he came in here for inspection. Wow, Chinelo said, almost dancing. Onome, we have made it. Do you know how much this is in Naira? Our story has changed though. Onome chuckled. I don't understand why you are rejoicing like this. This is not even our money. Chinelo's excitement quickly disappeared. Hello. Have you never heard of finders keepers? We found the money, so it now belongs to us. Chief is very rich. He won't even notice that it's missing. Haba, Chinelo, are you hearing yourself? Onome asked, frowning. This is stealing and I will never be a part of that. Chinelo rolled her eyes and laughed. No problem. You don't have to be a part of it. Just give me the money and I'll carry the guilt alone, even though there's nothing to feel guilty about. No, Onome said firmly. I'm going to return this money to Mr. Obi tomorrow. He'll give it back to Chief. Chinelo clapped her hands in mock surprise. Wonders shall never end. You always like to act like you are better than everyone else. That's why people like you never succeed. You see an opportunity and you throw it away. Anyway, sha do you. Onome did not respond. She quietly placed the money inside her basket and returned to the task at hand. Chinelo pretended to be working too, but she was secretly watching, waiting for Onome's attention to shift. And it did not take long. The moment Onome turned away to check one of the boxes, Chinelo quickly reached into the basket, grabbed the money and tiptoed towards the door. Before Onome could realize what was happening, Chinelo had turned, stuck out her tongue mockingly, and laughed. Ha ha ha, foolish girl, she said as she stepped out of the room and bang, she slammed the cold room's heavy metal door shut and locked it from outside. Onome's heart skipped. She ran to the door and started banging. Chinelo, Chinelo, open this door, she screamed, her voice echoing through the freezing room. But it was too late. Most of the workers had left. The building was almost empty, and outside the cold room, it was impossible to hear what was happening inside. The thick insulated walls blocked out all sound. Onome banged harder, screaming, crying, her hands already numb from the cold. She was locked inside a freezing room, and no one knew she was in there. Onome eventually got tired of screaming. Her voice was gone. Her hands were numb. Her whole body was weak. She slid to the cold floor and sat there shivering. The cold had started to creep through the protective jacket she wore, biting into her skin. Her teeth chattered as tears streamed down her face. Is this how my life will end? She thought. She thought about her mother, strong, hard-working mama, who had suffered so much already. If anything happened to her now, would her mother survive it? She thought about her baby boy, Ifunanya. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, hotter than before. Or maybe it was just the sting of the cold. Her little boy would grow up without a mother or a father, alone. She cried until she had no more strength to cry. Her tears seemed to freeze on her skin. 5 long hours passed. Hope was gone. Her body had started to shut down. She could barely move, barely breathe. Just as she felt like she was slipping into sleep, the kind you never wake up from, the heavy cold room door creaked open. Bright lights poured in. It was the security guard. He saw her curled up in the corner and rushed forward, lifting her weak body in his arms. That was how Onome was saved, just in time. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The news spread quickly, and Dimma, who had already been panicking because her daughter hadn't come home, ran to the hospital with Ifunanya strapped to her back. At the hospital, the doctor explained the situation. "She's very lucky," he said. "It's a miracle she did not suffer permanent damage, considering how long she was inside that cold room. But we still need to monitor her." Later that same night, Mr. Obi arrived at the hospital. The security guard had told him everything. When Onome became strong enough to speak, she turned to the security man and asked the question that had been on her mind. "Papa Lolo," she called him as she fondly did. "What made you come and open the cold room? It's not part of your job and your shift had already ended." The old man smiled. "I've been working in that factory for 15 years, he said. "People come and go. They pass me like I'm invisible. But you, every single morning, you greet me with a smile. And every evening when you are leaving, you always shout, 'Papa Lolo, see you tomorrow.' No matter how tired you are, you never forget." "But today," he continued, "I did not hear your voice after work. I waited, but nothing. I looked at the gate and realized you hadn't signed out either. Something told me that things were not right. So I started checking the factory. See, your little greetings made me feel seen. You remind me that I am someone. When I didn't hear your goodbye today, I knew that something was definitely wrong." Onome's eyes filled with tears. She was only being herself, friendly, kind, respectful. She never imagined that it would mean something so important to someone else. She smiled through her tears, grateful that her little acts of kindness had saved her life. Her mother, sitting beside her bed, could barely hold back her own emotions. She looked at her daughter with fresh pride. "This is the child I raised," she said to herself proudly. Onome told them everything that had happened, how she had found the money, how Chinelo had wanted to steal it. It was clear that Chinelo had planned to silence her forever. Mr. Obi was furious. "I promise you," he said through gritted teeth, "this matter will not be swept under the rug." And it was not. Because the next morning, Chinelo arrived at work, whistling happily. She could barely hide her excitement. By now, she thought, they must have found her body frozen. Poor Onome. What a pity, she thought to herself. But when she entered the reception area, her world crashed. Onome was sitting there, alive, surrounded by police officers, an angry Mr. Obi, and even Big Oga himself. Chinelo froze. She tried to turn and run, but the police were faster. They caught her immediately. She knew that the truth had come out and the end had come. The stolen dollars were found in her bag. She had planned to go and change the money into naira that day, but Nemesis had caught up with her. She was arrested on the spot. Later on, Chinelo was charged with theft and attempted murder. The court found her guilty and she was sent to jail. Chief, on the other part, was not just surprised by what Onome had done. He was deeply impressed. It wasn't every day you met someone so honest, so loyal, so selfless in a world where people would do anything for money. Onome had chosen integrity, and Chief was the man who believed in rewarding goodness. So that day, in front of all the factory workers, he turned to her and asked her just one question. What would you like me to do for you? Name anything and I will do it. Onome stood still, surprised. She had not expected this. She shook her head gently. Sir, I didn't do it because I wanted anything in return. Chief smiled warmly. I know. But as the saying goes, one good turn deserves another. So tell me, what do you want? Onome thought quietly. A part of her wanted to ask for help to go back to school. But then she remembered the struggle at home, the way her mother worked day and night just so they could eat. She looked up at Chief with a soft smile. My mother, she said, if you can help my mother, anything at all, then you've helped me. Everyone gasped softly. Chief blinked. Stunned by her answer, he had expected her to think about herself. But instead, she thought of someone else, her mother. Done, Chief said, touched to the core. Consider it done. And just like that, everything changed. When Dimma first heard what her daughter had done, she was a bit disappointed. Why didn't you ask him to sponsor your education? She asked, clearly confused. But Onome explained gently, Mama, if I had asked for school fees, we would still be hungry. You would still be struggling. But if he helps you, you will grow. And we can pay for school fees ourselves. I'm thinking of the long term. Dimma stared at her daughter, amazed. She had always known Onome was intelligent, but this kind of wisdom, it was beyond her years. True to his word, Chief invested in Dimma's life, and it was not a small gift, a whopping 20 million naira. Dimma was in shock. One day her account had been empty, even showing minus, and the next, she was being called by the bank and introduced to a personal account manager. She had gone from nothing to something almost overnight. She wanted to thank Chief in person, but by then he had already traveled out of the country again. No one knew when he would return. Still, Dimma did not waste time. She took the money and invested wisely in raw food business, because no matter how hard things were, people would always eat, rich or poor. Food was always in demand. It was a necessity to survive. She opened a large wholesale food store, sold bags of rice, beans, cartons of spaghetti, gallons of oil, spices. Everything. Her shop had it all. She secured a good spot in the market, and within months, business was booming. Their home was renovated. They could afford to leave that place, but Dimma had some form of attachment to that house. It was where she had started her life with her husband Dede, whom she would never forget. So she stuck to her small house. But then, they had finally begun to live comfortably. Onome worked in the factory for 2 months extra, just until the business was fully stable. Then, when she knew the time had come, she resigned and decided to go back to school. The day she left, Mr. Obi and all the workers gathered around her. They were sad to see her go, but proud of her nonetheless. Mr. Obi held her hand and said, whenever you are ready, there will always be a place for you here in management. Onome smiled with gratitude. She enrolled in the university to study financial accounting and business management. It was the perfect course, one that matched her dreams and her mother's business. While Onome studied, her mother ran the store and cared for little Ifunanya. It wasn't easy, but had learned to survive and how to win. And finally, things were looking better for them. In school, Onome focused on her books. She gave no room for distractions. She was a beautiful young woman and many young men tried to get her attention, but she did not give it. Her heart still carried scars. She still thought about Aena sometimes, quietly. Sometimes she would even cry, but she didn't let those thoughts hold her back. She was determined to succeed. 4 years of study passed, plus 1 year at ICANN, and 5 years later, Onome graduated from the university, not just as a student but as the best student, a first-class graduate, top of her class, crowned with honor. On the day of her graduation, as she walked across the stage to receive her award for academic excellence, the entire hall clapped and cheered. But the loudest applause came from the front row. It was Dimma. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks as she clutched Ifunanya. Her heart was full. Her dreams had come true. Her daughter, the same daughter she once feared would not survive, had made her proud beyond words. They had not only survived, they had excelled. Onome did not need to look for a job. She had kept in touch with Mr. Obi, and as soon as she graduated, he offered her a position at the factory. She was to become the head of the accounting department, a very important position which came with a very attractive salary and incentives. She gladly took the offer. She would be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Now she would make enough money and still be close to her mother and her child. Things were going well. Meanwhile, 6 years had gone by. Aena had grown into an handsome young man. He had also graduated from the university and was now prepared as the only son to take over his father's businesses. But unlike his father, he had no plans to remain abroad. He had not seen his mother for years and he was very happy to see her. He was happy to be finally home. But something filled him with a sense of dread. His own room. The moment he stepped into his room, memories flooded his brain. He could see her standing by his bookshelf, smiling like she had no care in the world. He could see them sitting at the desk, laughing and arguing over nothing. He could hear the sound of her laughter. He could feel her presence, and it felt suffocating. He wondered what had become of her. She was now probably married to her rich boyfriend. Or maybe not. But he still loved Onome and wanted closure. He needed closure. Maybe then he would finally be able to move on. He made up his mind to find her. He wanted to know why she left him the way she did. Why she could not wait for him as she promised. He wanted to know if their love and the memories they had built together had meant so little to her and why she had betrayed him. He wanted to rest after the long journey, but how could he when every single thing reminded him of Onome? He stood up abruptly, wore a shirt and decided to take a walk. He had intended to just walk down the street, but somehow he found himself walking towards where he remembered as Onome's house. When he got there, he stood in front of the house. It looked different now. It was more beautiful than he remembered. He wondered if they still lived there. One mind pushed him to knock and find out. The other urged him to just turn around and leave. He listened to the first voice. He moved closer and knocked. There was no response. He knocked again. Still no response. He gave up immediately. But just as he was about to leave, the door opened, and a little boy between the age of 5 and 6 stood before him. "Hello," the boy said. Aena stood transfixed. The boy was unmistakably a spitting image of him. He looked up and met Mama Onome's unsmiling face. "Go inside, Ifunanya," Mama Onome said, breaking the silence. The boy obeyed. She looked at Aena. "You are back. Why are you here?" Aena was still in shock. Is he mine? Dima's eyes blazed with fury. Without saying a word, she slammed the door in his face. Aena was confused and stood there for what felt like an eternity. What is going on here? He asked himself repeatedly. He could not think straight. What just happened right now? He kept saying to himself. He turned on his heel and went back home. He needed to speak with his mother immediately. He needed answers. Aena did not wait a second after stepping into the house. He stormed straight into his mother's room, his face tight with anger and confusion. Madam Margaret was seated at her vanity. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking, "we need to talk now." She turned, surprised by his tone. "What is it?" "I just came from Onome's house," he said without wasting time. "There's a boy there, a little boy, who looks exactly like me. Is he my son?" Madam Margaret froze for a second. Then she stood up, her face changing. "What did you just say?" she asked, her voice rising. "I said," Aena repeated louder, "I saw a little boy who looks like me, and I'm asking you, is he mine? Did you lie to me?" Suddenly, her expression changed from shock to fury. "I can't believe you, Aena," she shouted. "After everything, you went back there? To that girl's house?" Aena's face clenched. "That is not the question, Mother," Mother Margaret hissed. "That girl insulted me. She disrespected me openly, shouted at me in public when I tried to talk some sense into her. And now you are here asking me about her child? How dare you?" She laughed bitterly. "Don't be foolish, Aena. That child can't be yours. She was parading herself around town, following every small boy with a phone and slippers. And you want to claim a child from such a girl?" Aena swallowed hard, his face pale. "I saw him, Mother. I looked into his eyes. He looks just like me, and I know that that child is mine. I feel it in my bones." Madam Margaret crossed her arms. "Even if he is, so what? Do you want to throw away your future for a girl who has no name, no class, no pedigree? You are too good, Aena. Too polished, too well brought up to be linked with someone like her. Forget her. Focus on your father's business. Get married to a girl from a reputable family and leave the past where it belongs." But Aena wasn't listening anymore. He turned and walked out of her room without saying a word. The door closed softly behind him, but inside his heart was screaming. Back in his room, he sat on his bed, completely shattered. His mother's words cut deep, but even deeper was the ache in his chest. The ache of knowing that that boy was his. No one could tell him otherwise. Onome had no right to keep that child from him. No matter what had happened between them, he had a right to know his son. He took a deep breath and looked out the window. He would go back to that house and he would speak to Onome directly. But for now, he had something else to handle. Tomorrow, he would be visiting one of his father's factories for the first time. It was time to start learning the ropes and take his place in the family business. The next day was a beautiful Tuesday morning in December. The sun shone brightly over the city, casting a golden hue on the factory roofs. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Workers moved around like bees in a hive, mopping, arranging, scrubbing, adjusting their uniforms. Everyone wanted to be of their best behavior. An important visitor was coming. Not just any visitor, their new boss. It was his first time visiting the factory and everything had to be perfect. Onome was especially nervous. She and her accounting team had worked late into the night to ensure all the ledgers were updated, all the figures corrected to the last kobo. First impressions mattered, and she was determined that nothing would go wrong. By 9 a.m. sharp, the factory bell rang. It was a sign that it was time for everyone to gather in the large conference hall. Everyone gathered, falling into neat rows. The new boss had arrived. As the door opened, every head turned towards the entrance. And then Onome froze. Her heart skipped 1,000 beats. She was sure it had stopped altogether. Her breath hitched in her throat as her eyes widened in shock. Standing tall and composed in an elegant navy blue suit, with the same charming smile she had memorized long ago, was Aena. Her Aena. He looked even more handsome than she remembered. He was older, more mature. His shoulders were broader and his face had grown more defined. But it was definitely him. There was no mistaking it. What was he doing here? She thought to herself. Wait, was he Chief's son? He was the son of her benefactor. Suddenly everything clicked. The first day she met Chief at the factory, she had felt a strange familiarity about him. Now it made sense. She had seen his photo before, hanging proudly in the Ononju mansion years ago. Her stomach twisted. Her hands felt clammy. Chief was Aena's father. She began to sweat and quickly blinked back the storm building behind her eyes. She needed to hold herself together. Right now, she was a staff member in a professional setting. Mr. Obi quickly stepped forward, cleared his throat, and introduced every one of them to their new boss, Chief Ononuju's son, Mr. Aena Ononuju. The room filled with clapping. Onome tried to clap too. She tried to smile even, but her hands felt weak. Then the workers began introducing themselves one by one, starting from the administration team. When it got to Onome's turn, she stepped forward. Onome Dede, she said, trying to keep her voice straight. Head of accounting. That was when their eyes locked. Aena's face changed. Shock, recognition, pain, all of it flooding into his eyes all at once. He stared at her, his mind spinning. Every emotion he had buried deep, the love, the betrayal, the confusion, the hurt, surged up like a volcano. He barely heard the rest of the introductions. His heart was pounding too loudly in his chest. As soon as the meeting ended, Onome fled, nearly tripping over her own feet. She ran into her office and slammed the door behind her. She sat at her table, her chest hot. She hadn't expected this, not today, not ever. Tears gathered behind her eyelids, but she fought them back. She was still trying to gather herself when the door swung open again. Aena stepped in, shutting it behind him with a quiet but firm thud. She stood upright immediately. Her voice was sharp. "What are you doing here?" He looked around the room and then at her. "Technically," he said, "I own this place, so I have every right to be here." A thick silence followed. They stared at each other, 1,000 unsaid words hanging between them like an invisible cloud. Finally, Onome broke the silence. Her voice was soft now. "I always wondered if I'd ever see you again. I used to imagine it. How it would happen, what I would say. And now here we are. Except now you're my boss." She swallowed hard. "I think it's best we keep whatever happened between us in the past. I'm here to work, and I would like to keep things strictly professional." Aena swallowed hard. "All these years I've waited, longed, and hoped to see you again. I don't care if this is a professional setting. I just have 3 questions to ask you. 1. Was what we shared ever real to you? Did you even love me a bit? Or was I fooling myself?" Onome burst into laughter. "Is that not a funny question to ask? I mean, you were the one who left me, denied me, betrayed the love and trust I had for you, left me pregnant, stranded and alone, and you stand here to ask me if what I felt for you was real?" She was beginning to boil and tears stung her eyes. Aena's face darkened and his anger also fled. "You knew that child was mine, Onome, yet you hid it from me. You lied to my mother. And why? So you could move on quickly with another rich boy? Is that what I was to you? A stepping stone? How could you be so cheap?" The word hit Onome like a slap. She blinked back at the fresh wave of tears threatening to fall. But then, everything became clear almost immediately. "So, that's what your mother told you," she said slowly, bitterly. "That I lied to her?" She stepped forward, now standing inches from him, her voice deadly calm. "Then you really have no idea who your mother is, do you?" "I begged your mother, Aena. My mother begged her. We told her the truth. She called us liars. She called us gold diggers. She threw money at me like I was trash to get rid of my baby. She fired my mother, the only source of income we had. She humiliated us." Tears spilled freely now. "I was just a teenage girl carrying the child of the boy I loved. And your mother made me feel like dirt, like I was less than human." Aena staggered a little, as though her words had physically hit him. He had no idea. He thought back to the day his mother had told him Onome had become wayward and had insulted her and claimed the child wasn't his. Now everything sounded different. Everything he thought he knew was beginning to collapse. And for your information, Onome added, her voice rising, there was never any other rich boy. I was busy surviving, working, suffering, raising your son alone while you were living in luxury. There was silence in the room now, except for the heavy sound of her breathing. Aena stood frozen. Everything she said felt like a hammer in his chest. Then, if there was no rich boyfriend, he said, how did you manage with school and all? Onome smiled through her tears. It was your father. Aena was surprised. My father? How? It's a long story. I did not even know he was your father. I met him here for the first time while I was working as a factory girl. His help was as a result of repaying a good deed. I guess God never really abandons his own after all. Onome shook her head slowly. Now, if you excuse me, sir, I have work to do. She turned towards her desk, trying to steady herself, but Aena's voice came slow and shaken. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know, he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Onome paused, her back still turned to him. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to hold herself together. She had waited years to hear those words, but hearing them now did not undo the pain, the nights of hunger, the lonely months of pregnancy, or the shame of being tossed out like a stray. She turned slowly to face him again. You chose not to know Aena. He flinched at the truth in her words. You believed whatever your mother said without even trying to hear my side. You did not call. You did not write. You did not even try. Aena took a shaky breath. I lost your number, and I begged my mother to give it to me. She said you did not want to hear from me, that you insulted her. She told me that you were pregnant, yes, but with someone else's child. Onome let out a dry laugh. Of course she did. That's what she needed you to believe, and you ate it all up. I was young. Aena cut in. I was confused. I was angry. I was hurt. No, she cut in. You were a coward. The room was quiet again. The kind of quiet that presses on the chest and makes breathing difficult. Aena stepped closer. Let me make it right. Please, Onome. Let me be in his life. She crossed her arms, her eyes hard. It's not that easy. You don't get to waltz back into our lives like nothing happened. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try. I want to know him. I want him to know me. He's my son, Onome. Her heart thudded. He's not a piece of property you can claim when you feel like it, she snapped. He's a child with feelings. He knows nothing about you. You're a stranger to him. Aena looked down, ashamed. Then let me stop being a stranger. Let me earn my way back into your life, into his life. Onome's expression softened just a little. This is not about me anymore, Aena. Everything I do now is for my son. Then let me do it for him too, he said almost desperately. Please, Onome, let me prove it. I've changed. See, I'm not the same clueless, privileged boy I was. There was a long pause. Then she finally said, we'll see. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. He exhaled with relief. It was more than he hoped for. "Thank you," he whispered. Onome nodded slowly. "Now please leave. I have work to do." Aena hesitated and turned and left the office quietly, gently shutting the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, Onome collapsed into her chair, covering her face with her hands. The tears came again, this time harder than before. Aena did not wait a second longer. The moment he stepped out of Onome's office, fury boiled inside him like lava, searching for an escape. He did not greet the staff, didn't respond to Mr. Obi's cheerful farewell. He walked straight to his car, slammed the door shut, and drove like a man possessed. By the time he got home, his hands were trembling on the steering wheel. He pushed the front door open and marched into the sitting room. "Mother!" he shouted. Madam Margaret, who was seated on the couch, sipping from a glass of juice, turned slowly. "Aena," she said with a smile, "you're back early. How? Don't even try it, mother." "How could you? How could you do this to me?" His voice thundered. Madam Margaret blinked. "Excuse me?" "Oh, don't act clueless, mother. You lied to me. You lied about Onome. You lied about everything." Her smile vanished. She set her glass down carefully. "Watch your tone, young man. No, I have watched it for too long. Now it's time you heard the truth you tried so hard to bury. You told me she insulted you. You said she got pregnant for someone else. You said she was running around with boys. But you never told me how she begged you, how her mother begged you, how you fired her, gave her money to take out my own child." Madam Margaret stood up slowly, her face hardening. "I did what was best for you, Aena." No, you did what was best for you," he roared. "You thought she was beneath us, didn't you? A maid, a poor girl who had the audacity to fall in love with your precious son. She was never your equal," Madam Margaret hissed, her voice shaking. "What kind of future would you have had with her? You were going abroad. You had responsibilities, a legacy to protect, and she would have dragged you down. She never wanted my money. She only wanted me," he said, tears brimming in his eyes now. "She gave birth alone, suffered, raised our son alone, and I was here thinking she betrayed me. You made me hate her. You turned my love to dust and made me believe she was trash. She's not the kind of woman you marry, Aena," Madam Margaret spat, her own voice cracking. "She's a nobody, a cleaner. I did it for your own good. You did it for your pride, mother," he barked. "For your foolish sense of class and status. I will not let you control my life anymore. I have a son, and I will be in his life. I don't care what you think or who disapproves. You've stolen 6 years from me. You won't steal another minute." He turned to leave. "Aena," she called, her voice trembling. He paused and looked back. "You've lost the right to say my name the moment you decided to break me. And as far as I'm concerned, I do not have a mother." And with that, he walked out, slamming the door behind him. Madam Margaret sat slowly, her hands shaking. She had always believed she was in control. But now, for the first time, she realized something terrifying. She had lost him. forever. That night, Onome sat on the couch, lost in thought. Ifunanya had gone to sleep, and her mother was just staring at her. Her fingers were locked tightly together, her eyes puffy from holding back tears all day, her chest heavy with unsaid words. Dima, ever watchful, had quietly been watching her, pretending not to notice the way her daughter's shoulders trembled slightly. But when the silence stretched for too long, she walked over and sat beside her. "You've not said a word since you came back," she said softly. Onome exhaled shakily. Then the words tumbled out of her like water from a broken pot. She told her mother everything, from the moment of the meeting that morning to the second Aena walked into her office and the storm of emotions that followed. "He's our new boss, Mama," Onome said with a bitter laugh. "Chief Ononuju's son. Can you imagine? It all makes sense now. Why Chief looked so familiar. He was Aena's father all along." Dima's eyes widened. "Chief Ononuju, the man who helped us, was Aena's father?" Onome nodded slowly. "And when we saw each other today, it was like the whole world stopped. He confronted me. He felt that I had betrayed him and moved on with another man. Madam Margaret fed him with lies, told him that I was pregnant with someone else's child. But when I told him the truth, he was shocked. Mama, he did not know. Everything he believed was what his mother told him." There was silence. Then Dima reached out and held her daughter's hand gently. "He came here yesterday," she said. Onome blinked. "What?" "Yes. He came looking for you. He looked lost, like a boy who had just seen ghosts when he saw Ifunanya. Onome, the way he looked at that boy, I knew immediately that he knew the truth." Onome shook her head, tears gathering again. "But Mama, he left me and believed his mother over me. He did not even fight for me." "You did not tell him," Dima said gently. "But how could I?" "No, my child," she interrupted. "You did not tell him. You had your reasons and they are very valid. I understand. You were young, you were scared and broken and had no means to reach him. But so was he. He was a boy pulled between love and loyalty to his mother, and it seems his mother took full advantage of that. We were both hurt, Onome, but maybe, just maybe, it wasn't all his fault." Onome looked away. "I don't know if I can ever trust him again." Dima touched her cheek. "Forgiveness doesn't always mean going back, but it always means letting go. I watched you cry yourself to sleep for years over that boy. Onome, I watched you break. I watched you heal. But even now, I see it in your eyes. Aena still lives there." Onome began to sob quietly. "Mama, what if he wants to take Ifunanya away from me?" Dima smiled softly. "He won't. And even if he does, he will have to go through me first. But from what you said, I don't think he wants to take anything. I think he just wants to belong again, to you, and to the child he never knew existed." There was silence. Then Dima continued. "I want you to do something for me, Onome. Listen to him. truly listen. You don't have to give him your heart immediately, but give him the chance to explain. Let him see his child. Let him prove himself. Life is too short to let pain rule us forever. Onome rested her head on her mother's shoulder, letting the tears fall freely now. I'm so scared, Mama. What if he hurts me again? Dimma kissed her forehead. Then you will rise again just like you did the first time. But if you shut the door without even hearing his knock, you may lose something you were meant to hold on to. There in that dimly lit room, something shifted. Onome did not speak anymore. The past had left scars, but maybe, just maybe, there was still space for healing. The next morning came quietly. The sun streamed through the curtains of their small cozy room. Onome lay in her bed. She had called in sick just for this purpose. Her heart pounded as she stared at the message she had typed. Aena, can we talk? Please come by the house around 4 p.m. There's someone I want you to meet properly. She hovered over the send button for a few seconds, then closed her eyes and pressed it. It was done. Now all she had to do was wait. By exactly 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. Onome's heart leapt. She turned to her mother, who nodded silently and took Ifunanya to the next room. Then with a shaky breath, she walked slowly to the door and opened it. There he was, dressed simply in a polo and jeans, but standing tall, strong and nervous. Their eyes met. For a second, no one said a word. Then Onome stepped aside, coming. He walked in quietly, his eyes scanning the room that still looked almost exactly the same from all those years. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but nothing could have prepared him for the real thing. I'm sorry for everything that has happened. He looked down, remorse heavy in his voice. I wish I could go back and change everything. I wish I had fought harder for you, for us, for our son. At the mention of our son, Onome swallowed hard. That's why I asked you to come today. I want you to meet him properly. She turned and called out gently to her mother. The door creaked open and Dimma stepped out with a sleepy-eyed little boy holding her hand. Ifunanya looked up curiously at the man in the room. Aena crouched slowly, tears already gathering in his eyes. Hi there, he said, his voice cracking. The boy tilted his head. Are you Mommy's friend? Onome smiled, her hand gently rubbing her son's back. This is your daddy, sweetheart. Aena couldn't breathe. For a moment, the world stopped. The boy looked at him again, this time with a little more curiosity. My daddy? Aena nodded. Yes, I'm your daddy. The boy took a slow step forward, then another. Where have you been? That broke him. A tear slipped down Aena's cheek as he opened his arms. Far away, too far away, but I'm here now and I'm never going anywhere again. Ifunanya stepped into his arms and just like that, the years of pain, confusion and distance melted away. Aena still knelt on the tiled floor, his arms wrapped around his son, unable to hold back the tears that flowed freely. Ifunanya, though young, held onto him tightly. His little fingers curled around the collar of his shirt like he knew he had just found something that had been missing. Onome stood a short distance away, hands clasped to her chest. Her heart a flurry of emotions, fear, love, regret, relief. Dimma quietly stepped away into the bedroom, giving them space, even though her ears remained alert behind the door. Aena rose slowly, standing before Onome. They stared at each other, the air heavy. I have spent 6 years, he began. 6 whole years searching for peace, trying to fill the void you left in my heart. I thought I was angry at you. I thought I hated you. He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. But the truth is, I have never stopped loving you, not even for one day. Onome's lips trembled. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears, but they came anyway, rolling down her cheeks. You hurt me, Aena, she said quietly. You left me with a life growing inside me. I was just a girl, and I needed you. I know, he whispered, stepping even closer. And now, I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you let me. He reached for her hand, and she let him take it. I was a coward, he continued, but I'm not that boy anymore. I'm a man now, and I'm standing here not as your boss, not as the son of Chief Ononiju, but as a man who still loves you, Onome, deeply, hopelessly. She looked into his eyes and saw the truth. It was all there. Regret, love, longing. I thought I'd never hear those words again, she muttered. You will, he said, every single day, if you let me. I love you. I always have, and I always will. And I love our son. Please, give me another chance. Let me come home to you. Slowly, Onome stepped forward and wrapped her hands around him. Aena held her tightly, burying his face in her neck, breathing her in like he had been suffocating for years. I missed you, she whispered, tears soaking his shirt. So much it hurts to breathe some days. I will never leave again, he vowed into her hair. They stood like that for a long time, swaying slightly like they were dancing to a song only their hearts could hear. From behind the door, Mama Dimma wiped her own tears and smiled. Love had found its way back home. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who will enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Remember, like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.